In this video, we're going to talk about the energy sources in Subnautica, or the power sources that you have in Subnautica. We're going to discuss the disadvantages and the advantages of each one and at what stage of the game you should be using each of them, so stick around to get all that information. Without further ado, let's get into it. First off, you have the exterior model, the solar panel, that requires 2 quartz, 2 titanium, and 1 copper. That's essentially a very early game resources. You can find them pretty much all around the map. Generally speaking, I build around 4 of those, as each of them will provide you with 75 power. Their charging rate is not really something I know, but what I know is I build around 4, and that's pretty much enough for, oxygen generation, the fabricator, and the early game stuff that you could have in the base. Those are efficient up to 110 meters below sea level, because obviously they are relying on the light that the sun and the moon have to generate power. So if you go below 110 meters, they're basically going to stop working properly and probably generate less power than you are consuming. The second power source is the Bioreactor, and the Bioreactor actually is really good. So the Bioreactor needs a 3 titanium wiring kit and lubricant. Those are basically, you would require silver to get a wiring kit, but it's pretty easy to obtain in the area we are in right now. And in another video I've mentioned how to get here. This is like one of my most favorite locations to build your first base, as it's close to everything basically, and it's around 100 meters below sea level. Back to the Bioreactor. This one, the good thing about it, it generates 500 power, or its capacity is 500. It generates 50 power per minute, so that's a lot of capacity that you get, and a lot of power per minute that you have, so you can pretty much sustain a lot of things in the base when you need to. And the only thing here, or the 2 things here that are drawbacks for this, first one is that you need a multi-purpose room like this one to build it, otherwise you cannot build it, or a large room, and those are this one that requires 6 titanium, and or this one that requires 2 plasteel ingots. So those are the ones where you can build this type of module. And the other thing is that each one of those will require some sort of biofuel, which are trees, plants, fish, seaweeds, and whatnot. Generally speaking, when you get yourself on the lantern fruit or the bulbo tree samples, this becomes an easy task for you, but these run out pretty quickly, so I'm just gonna put those in here. And these power sources, or power fuel sources, run out pretty quickly, and the best approach here is to mix it up between the Bioreactor and the solar panels, at least between the early and mid game once you get the Bioreactor, so that if you are charging things up, like the solar panels will compensate, and if this thing runs out while you're away, because a lot of this game you're going to be away from the base, exploring and doing things, so that will be the solar panels helping you charge your stuff. So 4 solar panels, maybe a single Bioreactor, that's 750 capacity. That's pretty much enough for all the stuff that you need between the early and mid game. Moving on from the Bioreactor, we have the thermal power plant, and actually for this one we're going to have to take a trip to get to. We're going to follow this blue line, which is the power connection that we have. So the thermal power plants are deploy and forget, basically. That's the very good thing about them. They need, so if we go to exterior models, you have the thermal power plant. They have 5 titanium, 2 magnetite, and an aerogel. That's what you need for them. So those are pretty much medium or mid-game to late-game resources. So you're not gonna have aerogel and magnetite readily available all the time. So thermal power plants are pretty hefty to set up, and also they need a heat source to generate power like this one. So we took the journey here so we can see where it is, and actually I mentioned this exact location in my other video, so go check that out again. The bad thing is that it's a hassle. So in creative mode we can take this journey easily, but if you're doing this in survival mode, you're gonna have to surface and come back a lot of times. And also there are some dangers around here that you don't want to meet, and you can actually hear them. I hope it doesn't attack us. And yeah, and you're gonna also need the power transmitters And those power in this location, exact location, you need around 4 to 5 of them to generate the power. And if you look at the screen here, so the thermal generators give you tops 66 power per minute at 75 degrees Celsius. This one is giving us 53, the other one is giving us like 68. So that's good. The top efficiency is 75 degrees Celsius at 66 power per minute, and the capacity for each one of those is 250. And bear in mind, all the power sources stack. So if you build 2 of them, that's 500, and so on and so forth. The big drawback of thermal power plants is you know, the setting up and the material it costs is a lot. It is a very, very good power source, especially if your base is set up close to a power source. This one is relatively close to the one that we have set up, and there are also other places that you can use. But I would move away from thermal power plants if you are nowhere near a heat source that's close to your base. And also, you're not going to come by the resources pretty easily. So moving on from the thermal power plants, we're going to go to the nuclear power plants, and those are your late game power source or energy source. So let's look at what they need. So you need the plasteel ingot, advanced wiring kit, and 3 LEDs. So those are advanced materials. And also those require reactor rods. If we go to the fabricator, so under electronics, you're gonna see them: uranium, 3 lead, titanium, and glass. Actually, in this location, like, uranium is pretty easy to get by. It's literally under you down there. Getting the blueprints for this one is kind of hard, but you'll find them. And by the time you do, you will also have all the material that you need. The one thing that you have to do, so these take a long time to deteriorate, and then you have to get rid of the empty ones and build new ones and put them in. This one has 2500 capacity, and it generates 250 power per minute. So that's like your end game, any depth power source basically. Honestly speaking, most of the time I rely on bioreactors and solar panels for the most of the game, and then I transition into nuclear reactors unless I set up my base somewhere close to a thermal vent or a volcano or whatever, or outposts that are, you know, like charging outposts. Like, that's something that you can use thermal power plants. Otherwise, just stay away from the thermal power plants. And here you have it. This is basically all the power sources or the energy sources that you can have in Subnautica. This has been Host. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.